On today's episode, the DeRaud-Messinger Show, we recap the Texas 2022 recruiting class. Longhorns fans, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. It's greatly appreciated. So to begin, Dylan, we have a little summary overview of this recruiting class. In total, the class had 28 commitments, which seems like a lot for the typical Texas class, but I know definitely this past season there's been some need to cut down on some scholarships, Dylan, and get some new blood in there. And overall, the recruiting class, like I said, 28 commits, the first ranked class in the Big 12 and the fifth ranked in the nation. Not too bad, Dylan, after a very impressive 5-7 season. Please note the sarcasm there. Now, Dylan, what are some areas of promise, things to be excited about in this recruiting class?
Well, obviously, I feel like the main headline going into this season for Sark was to bolster that offensive line, and with those 28 players that have committed, 7 of them have been offensive linemen, so he's gone out and he's gotten the guys he needs, especially with guys like Devon Campbell and Cole Hudson and Nito Umeozulu and offensive tackle Kelvin Banks and Malik Agbo to go down, a promising list there, Devon. So, I mean, those are some bruisers you need up front, and that's going to set the tone for your offense as well as just your team in general when you have an offensive line that is willing to get dirty. So hopefully these guys are coming in with that much talent, and hopefully we'll see an impact, at least in training camp, and just getting a whole vibe for the whole team going into the season.
Yeah, when was the last time Texas had 2 5-star offensive linemen in a class? I believe this is the first time ever with that happening. But overall, Dylan, NFL draft and Texas offensive line just hasn't been synonymous with each other. I believe, I don't want to say the exact year because I'm blanking here, but I believe it was like 2003 or something since Texas, or 2002 since Texas had a first-round NFL draft pick on that offensive line. This might be the recruiting class to change that. And like you said, you listed off the names and good pronunciations there. I mean, Devon Campbell, like we pitched in this last video we did, we need some sponsorships, Austin restaurants with him. Him and Kelvin Banks and the rest of the gang, I definitely think that they're ready for some, eatery sponsorships. But jokes aside, Dylan, I like what they bring to this class. As I mentioned, you have the top-end talent that can be NFL draft pick worthy. And then you also have the guys like Cole Hudson and Connor Robertson, which are maybe a little bit undersold on those recruiting sites, but have the potential to start someday, maybe on the interior, and make a real difference for the Longhorns. And Dylan, what do you think about this? My statement here, offensive line recruiting is usually a numbers game, but this class seems to be a little bit different. Do you agree or disagree?
I would go that it feels different in the sense of like the quality of the quantity that they're getting at the moment. I feel like in the past it was kind of like, oh, okay, all right, we've got this 4-star offensive tackle that we've brought in, and he'll, we'll throw him in there. But with these guys, it just seems like there's a different vibe to them. There's almost a charisma or strength. Like you know almost what you're getting. This guy's gonna come in there, he's gonna set a certain tone that you're looking for versus, you're just throwing some talent in, and I don't know, you haven't felt the same vigor that some of the other guys have brought, if you're getting what I'm saying.
Yeah, this class seems to have a little bit of a swagger to it. They haven't, I mean, most of them, I believe Cole Hudson's the only one that has actually stepped foot on campus as an early enrollee. The other guys obviously will be getting there a little bit later. But as you said, a little bit of a swagger to this class. I don't want to ever preach savior, especially when we talk about quarterbacks. Do not expect saviors. You got to really invest in these young men in order to get them on the field later. They're going to have to be obviously just kind of building on the foundation that they've already received at the high school level. But overall, definitely excited about this. And as you were saying, it seems like a lot of times, especially with Texas, you just kind of throw offensive linemen out there at the wall and see what sticks, which hasn't been too promising, especially when we're talking about areas of promise. Seems like they often get maybe, and even in a good year, maybe 5 offensive line commits or something around that. And they're usually 3-star guys, and they're just kind of thrown into the fire, as you were mentioning, seeing which one is going to be able to start. And usually maybe one out of those 5 end up producing. But this class, I feel like from top to bottom, has potential to start at some point. And Also, the long-term NFL draft capabilities, which I definitely like. Now, Dylan, let's hear your next area of promise.
Well, I'm moving over to the other side of the ball, but still sticking with the big guys. I definitely like what they've done with the defensive line. They've got edge rushers and Jamon Taft from Louisiana. They got Derek Brown from Texas High and Texarkana, and defensive lineman Christopher Ross from North Shore. Now, those are some big boys, as well as Devon, of course, defensive end Ethan Burke, who stands at 6'7", so can't forget about him and his height. So that's gonna be great to have if he ever sees the field in the first year or two. But I mean, again, you gotta in the Big 12 conference as well as within the SEC, you gotta have big boys on the defensive line that can create pressure on the quarterback, as well as stopping those rushing lanes. Because again, with SEC football or Big 12 football, still like it all starts with the running game. If the running game is clicking, that passing game is going to come with it. Those play actions. So if you're getting run over, like Texas has kind of seen this past year, it's going to be hard to just stop an offense in general if they can just kind of just run the ball down your throat. If a team can just stay one-dimensional in the run game, they're going to win games, Devin. So getting guys like that hopefully will bring some run-stopping ability is going to be a huge, huge step forward for this team. And as well as Devin, that secondary, they boosted it up a little bit with safety Brian Allen Jr. from Aledo, cornerback Terrence Brooks from Little Elm, and Jalen Gilbo from Port Arthur. That's a lot of talent to add to the secondary as well. Some track stars, to say the least, that can hopefully, maintain some coverage. And hopefully, again, that they're not getting sent out there and having to, cover a guy for 10 seconds. Hopefully that pass rush will still get there. But still adding that talent that Texas desperately needs on that defense is it's a good step, and the talent is there now.
Now I'm going to throw you a lob here, Dylan, which please don't take this too hard on me, but the last national championship game the Longhorns were in against Alabama, you saw the strength of that defensive line and what it did to the team, quite literally injuring, our prized possession. This recruiting class for the Longhorns looks like they could be doing the same to some SEC teams for a change. You talked about Ethan Burke. I know, Dylan, I apologize here, the former Michigan committee. He flirted with you guys, but he chose the right girl in Texas. And 6'7" frame, you obviously can't teach that. And when we were watching him, Dylan, I think I said something along the lines to you when we were covering Westlake's game, like, where does Westlake get these kids? He wasn't seemingly anywhere. I believe he was hurt his prior year, so that's probably why we didn't see him. But like out of nowhere, 6'7" guy comes and plays for a state championship winning team. Christopher Ross, I also like. He's just Mr. Hustle. I mean, he's not Brock Cunningham because he's on the hardwood, but Christopher Ross has a little bit of the Brock Cunningham qualities that I know you Longhorns fans like to see on the basketball court for Texas. And then, as Dylan also mentioned, Jamon Tapp. I also like Justice Finkley out of Alabama. I believe Dylan weighs in at 255 pounds, which is always a promising number out of high school for a edge rusher. Now, Dylan, did any of these guys in particular stand out to you? I know you listed a couple of them. Do you have any favorites that you're really going to be rooting for day one?
I feel like I'm a big believer in size, so adding like a 6'7" guy like Ethan Burke, that's huge. Like that's just almost just creates a black hole on one side of the field when you're trying to pass. Like it puts pressure on the quarterback to kind of get more lift on the ball to get it over him. Like I mean that's a lot of wingspan and height, Devin, to get a ball over just for like a screen pass on that side. So having size like that, and you've seen it in how Westlake played. Like you had Basic on 6'5" on the other side, and it was nearly impossible for quarterbacks to throw the ball or just have time. So getting size like that, especially with Christopher Ross in the middle, those are two guys that really stand out to me just in the way that they're going to impact the passing game and the defensive game, but just almost the intimidation factor is what I'm kind of getting at.
I agree, and like we talked about on the offensive line, I think that this group has a good mix of highly ranked guys, but then guys that are also a little bit under-recruited, at least in terms of recruiting services, that might be ending up giving Longhorns fan a pleasant surprise, let's say, in the near future. Now, Dylan, also talk about the secondary because you already stole that point from me. I love the secondary haul in this class. Now, unfortunately, in my eyes, I usually view the secondary as kind of like the offensive line in terms of let's throw as many guys out there, see who sticks and ends up starting for a couple of years at us. But I think we have a lot of athletes, and Texas does, in this recruiting class. Like you said, track stars or guys that just were kind of, I guess, multi-position stars. I know Larry Turner Gooden, we did a video about him. He played wide receiver and in the secondary in high school. Now, I like that because it adds a little bit of playmaking ability. Brian Allen Jr. out of Aledo showed a lot of promise during his time there, and it seemed like he's been starting there since the dawn of time, Dylan, because he's that good. But overall, Terrence Brooks, the cornerback out of Little Elm, it's just stuff that gets you excited, especially as we talk about the defensive woes and struggles of late. I do like this kind of influx of new talent, and hopefully they're able to get on campus quick and challenge the guys that are already there. So, yet again, areas of promise is promising. We'll see if it sticks, Dylan. We'll see if it sticks, but there's reason to be optimistic for once. But, Dylan, unfortunately, I just say optimistic, and now we're going the other side of things. What are some areas of concern about this recruiting class for you?
Well, Devon, the one that instantly stood out to me when I was looking through just the recap and who Texas has added is just one linebacker has been added in this recruiting class, and that's 3-star Treble Johnson from Arlington Martin, Devon. I mean, he's going to be a solid player, but only having one guy to add to an already shaky linebacker core that Texas had last season, I feel like there was more guys out there to maybe push forward to add to this team, and it just wasn't done. So obviously you can't always get what you want in a recruiting class. They filled out everything else very nicely. So this is just one little blemish that I really see. So, and that's a good thing. We can only complain about one blemish. But
can I jump in there?
Say that again?
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
The one linebacker, as you say, Travail Johnson, that's area of concern. I think Johnson, yet again, has potential. He's only a 3-star by recruiting services, but I think he's one of those guys that could, prove his worth. But as you said, one linebacker, this team already kind of struggled in that linebacker core. We need quality guys, not just number guys, but we only have one, recruit that's a linebacker in this class. And Johnson's going to be coming off of an injury, so we hope and wish for all the best for him. But yet again, we need some star players out there. Dylan, I know Michigan had quite a good defense out there, but I don't think Harbaugh's letting go of any of those guys. But I'll let you get back to it.
Yeah, I mean, just the linebacking position is just a huge proponent of the defense. So the secondary's huge, trenches is huge, but making sure that those running backs are covered coming out of the backfield. And tight ends, especially with tight ends becoming even more important. I mean, tight ends are now like just these basketball stars that are running 4.6s, Devon. So you need linebackers out there to cover these kind of guys. So being low on that kind of talent isn't promising to me.
Yeah, and the linebackers are the quarterback of the defense. And as of late, like I have mentioned, we've been getting transfer portal acquisitions, the Longhorns have, but over time, this past year, the transfer portal acquisitions were more of, depth chart fillers. And the past years, we maybe gotten one or two guys that have made differences, like Juwan Mitchell when he was starting, but other than that, it's definitely been the struggle bus. Now, Dylan, I am dying to hear your next area of concern here. See if I can chime in.
Well, area of concern for me, It's tough. It's a question mark almost because when you're looking at the transfer portal, you got Quinn Ewers coming over, you got Hudson Card already sitting there, and then you got Malik Murphy who was recruited earlier in the fall, and I mean this guy seems 6'4", 225 pounds, Devon, from Gardena, California, and I'm curious to see how he's going to be used in his first season. Is he going to see playing time? I know that he's nursing an ankle injury that he got from towards the end of the season. So I don't know how much he's been involved in camp already, but I'm curious to see how that quarterback position shakes out. Just with Quinn Ewers obviously being the clear favorite, but I mean Malik Murphy obviously has talent. He's recruited there for a reason, so I'm curious to see how that selling point has changed for him, how he's feeling about the season already, and just how that's all going to play out.
Yeah, and I think usually when a guy gets onto campus, Dylan, we preach that strength and conditioning program because that's what we like to do. We want to see the guys hit the weight room and get their restaurant sponsorships. Devon Campbell, I'm speaking to you there. But Malik Murphy, Dylan, in this scenario, I'm preaching more of a mental strength and conditioning program. He's getting onto campus, as you said. Quinn Ewers is already going to be there. Everyone's hyping him up, and justly so. Number one recruit in the country, and then reclassified and was still the number one recruit in the country. That's pretty hard to do, to be basically number one player in 2 recruiting cycles. But Malik Murphy, as you said, after Texas originally lost out on Ewers, Murphy became the next option, and now he's in a position where the tables have kind of turned and he's back into that original situation. So I'm preaching, the mental strength and conditioning, because is he going to be able to soak in everything that he can? As you said, he's still nursing an injury, so I don't believe he's going to be practicing or participating in these spring workouts that Texas is having, or winter workouts technically. But in this meantime, can he learn as much of the playbook as possible? Can he see what Card does well? Can he see what Ewers does well? Can he ask Sark questions? Asking questions of superiors, Dylan, is very important in order to learn at any, job, at any role of any organization. Can Malik do everything he can when he is physically unable to right now? And hopefully, like you were mentioning, hopefully soon it's back to normal for him and he's recovered. But yet again, he's going to have to soak up as much as he can in order to put himself in a good position when he's able to. Now, Dylan, my area of concern, and I'll let you talk about this a little bit, is that receiver group. They got Brennan Thompson out of Spearman, Texas, which I love that get. He's a track star, quite literally. I believe he won a gold UIL medal in one of the races and was silver in the other, which pretty impressive, Dylan. I don't want to toot my own horn here, but I was never close to that at all. So congrats, Brennan. But I love what he does for Longhorns, just like I said, bringing that speed element. But the problem here is one sole receiver recruit in this class. There's a couple of guys that could end up playing wide receiver if they had to, but aren't guys that you necessarily want at that wide receiver position because they were recruited to play elsewhere. And so that's my area of concern. Jordan Whittington, after he got hurt last season, we kind of saw the depth issues for Texas. Now I know Sark has been active in the transfer portal already with one new receiver, but yet again, it's something that needs some nursing, maybe not major overhauls, but what do you think about wide receiver in Texas?
Well, it's all going to be about building rapport with the next quarterback of Texas. Obviously, that's another start. So we'll see how the talent kind of just works together at a certain point. But again, on paper, you want to see who you think is going to be bringing that next step. Going to be able to create that next step for Texas in the wide receiver group. And obviously, Isaiah Worthy is a cannonball, getting shot straight out of a cannon at times, Devon. But again, there's only so much you can do with only one guy, especially when teams can just double up on him and kind of take him out of the game plan. So obviously Jordan Whittington's been good when he's able to play. I really like the get from Wyoming in the transfer portal with Isaiah Nair, and also tight end Jaleel Billingsley from Alabama. Those are all guys that are really going to add to that, create some, have more weapons on offense for the next quarterback of Texas. So I agree there's not that next level talent that they're getting. I know you've talked about, Smith and Jigba, who came out of Texas and now, rocking the world at Ohio State, or Marvin Mims at Oklahoma. So Texas has not been able to add those type of guys that you'd like to see and you'd think that Texas would get, but I feel like it's all going to come with time.
Yeah, let's hope Brennan Thompson ends up being one of those guys, but definitely would like to see the Garrett Wilsons of the world, the Jackson Smith and the Jigbas, the Marvin Mims. But yet again, hopefully after the recruits of this next cycle see what's on the field this next season, maybe they start leaning that way, but we'll see. But yet again, these areas of concern, Longhorns fans, are not, they are major in our eyes, but we believe overall this recruiting class is pretty stellar. That's why the recruiting nerds, are rating it as the 5th ranked class in the nation. I believe that's per 24/7 Sports. So we always like siding with them. But yet again, we're pretty optimistic here. We like to see some things that are shown on the field, though. So let us know what you guys think of this recruiting class. What do you like about it? What's maybe an area of concern that you're putting on pause? Let us know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great rest of your day.